Okay, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to recording number 2, where we're making these recordings for 2 reasons. One, for people that are taking a good look at New Yugen and joining our team. We're anticipating questions you might have, concerns, curiosities, so that we can handle them. And for those of you that are on our team, the information here can be very helpful for you in having a greater knowledge of what's going on, and it can also be a very helpful training tool and coaching tool for the 3 people that you're working with at any one time. So we're just going to continue. Like I said, I don't know how many videos this is going to take. If you haven't seen video 1 yet, I would recommend it. So ask your sponsor to share with you video number 1 as well if they haven't already. So I'm going to turn it over to Angela, and I don't know what she's going to ask me. That's the way that I preferred it, to keep it real, keep it conversational. So take it away, Angela.
Hey, great. Well, I got a doozy for you. First question. If you had 3 minutes to present this opportunity in its simplicity and yet the enormity of the opportunity, how would you present it in 3 minutes?
I don't think I could answer that question in a vacuum, because the way I present it is a function of the person that I'm talking to some extent. So I think that's probably the most important thing I could say in my answer, is that you need to meet people where they are and then give them opportunities to move along, so to speak. And so I can't answer that question in a vacuum, but I'm actually answering your question, because I think the most important point to come out of this answer is that there is no one way to do it. You have to meet people where they are. You have to take an interest in people, have them start to feel safe with you, and then see if you can find out about their current situation, about their interests and concerns. And basically what you're wanting to do is build up some trust and rapport, and then get a sense of whether what we have to offer might be a good match for that person. And if not, I might not say anything. Remember, this is your business. And so you don't have to invite anyone to take a look at it. It's completely up to you. And when you extend an opportunity for someone to take a look at, and I'm assuming you're not talking about as a customer, I'm assuming you're talking about the possibility of joining our team.
That's right.
Yeah, when you're doing that, that's a major commitment. And you want to be feeling that person out while they're feeling you out. And, there's so many factors. How do you feel around this person? What's your sense of their current situation? What are their interests? What are their concerns? Because you're there to possibly solve a problem they have, or you're there to possibly fulfill a need they have, or help them realize a dream. And one of the big mistakes a lot of people make is that they seek to be understood before they understand.
So you don't have an elevator pitch, as they would call it, on this opportunity?
No, but I do have in my knowledge base, I do have lots of information in my knowledge base that I can pull on if I need it. It's kind of like, have you ever played a sport competitively?
Mm-hmm.
What sport?
Volleyball.
Okay, so when you're practicing volleyball, you're developing a knowledge base, you're developing a skill set. And when you're going through that process, it can be laborious. You have to train, you have to learn the way of doing things, you have information or techniques you need to master. But when you get out on the playing field, you better not be thinking about that.
Mm-hmm.
You better be thinking about, you better just be in the moment playing
Be
the
present.
game.
Yeah.
And trust that your preparation is good enough. And so it's really important to be present with people and not be in your head. And so it's important to do enough study work and prep work and have a knowledge base such that when you're out on the playing field, you can trust your instincts.
Right. So, okay, that's a great, leading question too. So if I've signed up 3 people and they've decided to be my committed partners, obviously they're not going to know a whole lot about the program and I have a knowledge base at that point before their start time of their 10 days.
Well,
So
you don't know. You don't know. Some people
Right.
some people are geeky and nerdy and they want to know a lot before they decide. And some people don't. And that's why I'm saying, if you try to get into a recipe, you might get okay at this, but you're never going to master it. It's like you can learn recipes, but the greatest chefs have gone way beyond the recipe.
Right.
You can learn scripts, you can learn techniques for this personality type, for that personality type. You can learn to recognize personality types. You can learn about asking open-ended questions as opposed to closed-ended questions. There's a lot of techniques you can learn in the whole process of communicating with people. And we can train on those things, but you don't want to be thinking about those things.
But what about for just the people that are coming on and they're seizing the opportunity because of the fact that they only need to get 3 partners. So They don't really have intentions of being in it past 40 days, other than, of course, they're going to be in it because they're going to start making money and it's going to be fun. But if they only ever wanted to approach 3 people, then they might not.
But I don't recommend only approaching 3 people. I recommend inviting 60 people.
Right. Yes. But once they've already got their 3 committed people in there, or they've already got 3 people that have said yes to being a partner with them, then they may not want to continue to get more partners, is what I meant.
But what does that have to do with what I'm saying?
Well, so somebody like myself, I came on, I did some research in the day before I decided. I looked at the the founders of the company. I looked at the product of the company. I looked at your background, and then, I also looked at my own intuition and what I was feeling around it all. But I didn't have a whole lot of knowledge before I just started approaching people, because I had a very little time before my 10 days started. And so then I went through those 10 days and I learned more as I went through those 10 days. But I'm thinking for the people that I'm bringing on now, we've got a start date that's right around the corner. So we're talking a knowledge base of 2 or 3 days where they're, learning about the product.
Well, by the time that most people see this, we'll have our act together better than we have it now. Like, probably by the time most people are watching this, we'll probably have like 3 or 4 or 5 different basic scripts that people can choose from.
Right.
And things like that. So, it's harder a little bit for the pioneers.
Right.
But the most important thing is to have a sense of what people are going to need to succeed and looking at where people are now. And having enough of a sense of the process yourself and enough of a sense of where that person is to have a sense of where they're likely to have their weakest link, where they're likely to have their breakdowns. And what you want to do is you want to anticipate those breakdowns. And as a good coach, you want to bring that up to the surface and provide resources and training and support that would reduce the likelihood that they would have a breakdown.
Right. Okay. Yeah,
And
I understand that.
So I really stay away from recipes.
Okay.
I'm probably not a good coach for people that want to paint by numbers.
Right.
I'd rather give people a critical path to follow and say, okay, well, you're going to need a list. You're going to use this lifeboat system, and you got to get your headspace in the right headspace to do this. And here's my suggestions about the list. Here's the way the system works. These are some of the inner qualities you're going to need to bring to the table. And then I would have them tell me, you know, where do you feel strongest? Where do you feel weakest? Where do you feel you might need some extra support? When you failed in the past, if you don't mind telling me, is there an area in, when you look back at your failures, is there something that you feel like, gosh, if only I could do that a little bit better, maybe I would have succeeded? Where do you feel really strong? Maybe there's somebody else on the team you could help. So I'm the kind of person where I like to ask a lot of questions, but I'm asking questions in a very purposeful, service-oriented way from having gone down that road already. Like a tour guide saying, oh, look at, you know, when you go around that corner, you might want to slow down because it's a dangerous corner. You know, kind of like that. So
right.
What I want to do is I want to get inside that person's head and heart. And I want to know not only those things, but I want to take a step back. And if I'm going too far away from your question, just shut me up. But I want to take a step back even from this level of coaching. And I want to go back to a more spiritual level. And I want to find out why this person is playing the game.
Right.
You know, that's where your maximum leverage is.
Yeah. And that's where your deepest heart connection with that person is going to be.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's
and it's going to be the success is going to come from the love and the caring and the goodwill of your team and your teammates and you as a coach. And for you to develop that kind of team consciousness and team life, group life, and that kind of loyalty and love, you have to really, really care about your people. And you have to be willing to give them whatever love they need. Some people will need a pat on the back. Some people will need to be given a kick in the butt. Because at the end of this, there's only going to be two things. There's either going to be the successful results, or there's going to be the reasons why they don't have them.
Right.
And you want to do everything you can as the leader, increase the likelihood that they will create success for themselves.
Right. And so that's an important point because, you know, you don't want to be following up with your team 6 days into their 10-day mark, because you want to know if they're having issues on day 1 and day 2, that they're having issues. And if you're not the type of person that has those resources like you do, to reach out to your upline.
Yeah, and you know, one of the things that will tell you that the person is bullshitting themselves and they're bullshitting you is if they don't have a list of 60 people, then you know they're not really in the game. And if they are not willing and able to get those invitations out the first 3 days, that's a good indicator that either they're not as committed as they think they are, or they're not coachable, or they're not setting themselves up for success. So there's a lot of indicators, if you pay attention, that you can catch things early. But I'd like to catch it even earlier in the vetting process. Because you don't have to accept everybody that wants to be on your team.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Probably, maybe the most important thing that's going to come out of this whole video is that last sentence. is you don't have to accept anybody on your team. There's other ways people can interact with New Yugen and have you be their sponsor with them being on your team and playing this game. And it's a privilege to be on your team. And if that's not your posture, then you have the problem.
Right.
And
that's a good point. It actually leads to the next question. How would you advise, what are the important factors that you're looking for when you're vetting people? Like, when people first start to play the game, it can be a tendency to like, okay, anybody that says yes, you're in, right? But that's not necessarily who you want to have on your team, because there's certain things that they have to commit to. So how would you?
Right. And so this all goes back to aligning, like I'm the leader of this team, and your success is going to partially be a function of the degree and the depth to which your purposes align with mine, since you're on my team. And so remember what this is all about. Remember, this is about, we're panning for gold, okay? We're sifting and sorting the way somebody pans for gold. And what we're looking for is we're looking for the gold. We're looking for a person who has high integrity, who has a really, really strong desire to be financially free that you can link to some core values, and someone who has the inner whatever it takes to be coached, to be corrected, to fail 95% of the time and still know they're succeeding. It's better to ask those questions at the beginning. Are you willing for me to coach you? Mm-hmm. Are you willing to follow the system? Are you willing, when you aren't clear on your next step, are you willing to reach out for help in a timely manner? Are you willing, if you've got something that's really working for you, are you willing to share it with the team? Are you willing to receive correction? You're much better off asking those questions early mm-hmm. than you are accepting every Tom, Dick, and Harry.
Right.
There's nothing that takes the place of, I can't make you have high standards. Mm-hmm. But I can tell you this, as the world gets crazier, the people who have lousy standards are going to suffer more and more.
Yeah.
And what we want to do here is we want to create an alternative culture with alternative values and alternative standards. And you're looking for people that want that.
Yeah.
You don't want to convince somebody who doesn't want that they should want that.
Right.
Or if you're doing that, then you're the one with the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Let me say that again. If you're doing that,
Mm-hmm.
if you're trying to do any convincing, then you're the one with the problem.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Do you know how many people there are that are over 18 in the United States and Canada? Do you know that in network marketing there are no territories?
Right.
It's
So
a big ocean.
it is.
And if you lower your standards, you're going to have to kiss a lot of frogs. And then you're going to want to quit because nobody likes kissing frogs.
What would you say to people on our downline that might be feeling anxious or concerned, or maybe even people that haven't decided to commit yet, about the 10-day time frame that they have?
I would say that if you can't do it in 10, you probably can't do it in 20.
Yeah, good enough, fair enough.
Uh-huh.
Yep. Okay. If someone doesn't need to take the product, or they don't feel the need to take the product, they don't see the value in taking the product, but they really like the opportunity.
You mean they didn't have a good response, or they just are unwilling to take it?
Yeah, they don't see the need for themselves to take it.
I would say if they're not even willing to try the product, I would consider that a red flag.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Because because this particular elixir, adaptogen, is good for almost everybody.
I would say, the only people that really shouldn't try it are people that don't have a heartbeat.
Well, there could be people that are allergic to certain herbs, or
That's possible, but that is such a small percentage.
Right. Yeah. No, that's right.
Yeah, that's like crazy.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
so I had here, when, from your perspective, once you've committed to the game, what do you see as the biggest challenge or obstacles to finding your own three people? But really, I think we've already covered that.
well, I mean, I think you've got to really, really, really be willing to expose the opportunity to high quality people.
Right.
You have to be proud of what you're offering.
Right.
And so whatever you've got to do to get to that place, that's what you got to do. If you are a person that has to do research to get to that point, do research. If you're the kind of person that has to acknowledge your fears, acknowledge your fears. Whatever you've got to do to get to the point where you honestly feel like you have this precious gift and you get to choose, hopefully with the guidance of the Holy Spirit, you get to choose who to offer it to, who to extend it to. And remember when Jesus was coaching his disciples, when they were asking him about how to share this message, and he talked about going door to door and sharing the good news. And what was his counsel if they weren't interested?
I don't know.
To bless that house and go on to the next one.
Mm. Right. It's not personal.
But you can only offer what you've already received.
So can you explain that a little bit more?
Right. Like the whole key for the disciples to be able to represent Jesus' message, they first had to imbibe it themselves.
Right. That's right.
Right? You can't give what you don't have to give.
That's right.
And so we're not about faking anything. We're about getting it to a critical mass that you can be an anchor for 3 people. And then as that anchor, you do what you can do, and if there's something they need that you can't do, you go upline. And by you doing that, you're training them to do that.
Right.
In their mind, the business is going to be what they see you doing.
Right.
So everything you do, they're watching you.
Fantastic. So my list of questions is shorter this time than it was in the first video. But in the first video, I had a long list of questions, and you elaborated more due to those questions. So I don't have any further questions. Do you have anything else that you're feeling inspired to share right now as part of this video?
Yeah, give me just a few minutes, a few seconds here to go inside.
Okay.
I feel that there's a danger in this conversation that we're focusing a little bit too much on technique and information. And there's an old expression that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Mm-hmm. So there's something about this conversation that's a little top-heavy for me.
Like heady.
It's a little too heady.
Too much in the head and not enough in the heart.
And I think, maybe you got a little too heady. And let's put first things first. Let's go back to the big picture. So in the middle to second half of the 20th century, there were some amazing Russian scientists that were exploring and discovering herbs that had these properties that we now call adaptogens. The word didn't even exist. They coined it. So let's go back and get the big picture. So obviously there were great Chinese sages and great Indian sages who knew about many of these herbs. And they were used in Chinese medicine and Ayurveda for thousands of years. But there was no science the way we consider in the West. There was no scientific validation. Okay, that's not to belittle them, but just the way our world is, it was a disconnect. And so for people to accept it and for us to learn more about it, in the modern world, scientists applied the scientific method to do experiments on large numbers of people in the Soviet Union. They had a lot of money because it was a communist country, and the government wanted these studies done because they wanted to get the most out of their workers and they wanted to get the most out of their athletes. And so we have this tremendous body of science on many of these herbs, and we have results. Workers were happier, workers were more productive, there was less turnover, less accidents. Athletes had better times, they had better recovery times, they won more gold medals. So on one hand, there's nothing new under the sun, but on the other hand, in the modern world, in the modern Western world, there's this discovery, there's this invention called adaptogens. And it's based on a wellness model, right? It's not based on, well, if you have this disease, you take this. It's based on a wellness model of, hey, how do we promote health? And so they tried to bring this to the West like 20 years ago, 25 years ago, but it was a little before its time. In the West here, in America especially, we were still too steeped in the disease model for the adaptogen idea to really catch on with the collective. It was catching on with naturally oriented physicians who were on the cutting edge of things, but we're talking about making a difference. We're talking about a populist movement here. We're talking about reaching the public in a big way.
Right.
Okay, so that had never been done before. So then, successfully. So when the main scientist died, he had at least a couple of disciples or serious students. And what he did was he gave all the intellectual property rights of all of his research to these students. And in return for that, the students said, I will pledge to you, Dr. Breckman, that I'll do everything I can in my lifetime to continue your research and get this out to the world. So you got to realize that this whole thing started with something very sacred, a sacred trust, something very much of the heart as much as it is of the mind. And I think it's important for people to understand the story. And I'm sure the new Yugen, as we mature, is going to be able to tell that story in more and more compelling ways.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the students of Dr. Breckman has put over $8 million of his own money over the last few decades into continuing to research and go through all the legal stuff that has to go through to get this out to the world. And so this is really a labor of love. And so if you want to tap into the power of that story, if you want to tap into the power of that reality, part of it is really embracing, and of course by taking the products it will help, really embracing at a cellular level what it is you have to offer people at the product level.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that piece. And then the other piece is really, really getting real with people at the heart level about what financial freedom would really mean to them and their families. And being 100% committed when you take on somebody on your team, that you're not going to do it for them, but you're going to support them in every possible way. And that's why you don't want to be cavalier about who you accept on your team.
Right.
Because it's a major commitment. One sec.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that interruption. So, so what I'm trying to say is the power comes from the heart. And then we direct that power through our thinking. But if you're laboring under the delusion that the source of the power comes from your thinking, you're mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not going to be powerful enough.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. And you also attract people who are in the same way of thinking, and slowly
right.
that's
and you're going to attract people that are going to tend to overcomplicate this.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to get, their egos are going to get involved, and they'll have a hard time following the system, and it's just be a mess.
Right.
Yeah. And so just get back to the realization that if you really, really know, if you really get that this is worth doing, and you really believe you can do it, the rest are the details.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's right.
You know, it's like beginnings are delicate times. Beginnings set the tone for a whole cycle. Beginnings set the tone for a relationship, and that tone is set by your consciousness and by your posture and by your confidence and by your caring,
mm-hmm.
and by your commitment to success, both your success and their success, because there's no room here for going through the motions.
Right.
You know, you're not getting paid by the clock.
That's right.
You're getting paid for a result. And the result you're getting that paid for is not just to get 3 people who'll get any other 3 people each, right?
Right.
You're wanting to set a standard and a tone so that the alignment will continue. The spirit
right.
of the group will continue,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Right. And it's better to be upfront about what's required than to constantly be trying to fill up leaks in a boat.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Great.
this may not be what you wanted to hear,
No,
but
it's perfect. It's what it is.
I think it's what needed to be said.
Yeah. No, it was great.
And I think that's a mark of a good leader. You know, a good leader will do and say what needs to be said and done.
Right. Well, it's helping to create and keep the structure of what is required to continue the community that we're going to build, for that to continue and to stay in the...
But it's deeper than that. It's deeper than dealing at the level of structure. It's going deeper. We're going to the heart. We're going to the purposes that underlie the level of structure. The structure has to be in service to the purpose.
Right, and so that's the structure I'm referring to, right? I mean, that's still a structure in a way, right?
No, I mean, unless you want to get super abstract, I mean, the love and the purpose has to be senior to the structure, or else the structure will end up dominating the love and the purpose, and it'll end up becoming fundamentalist and ossified.
Right. I understand what you're saying. I'm saying the love. I'm saying the love and the is the structure. That's the.
Okay. So let's let go of that idea, because love is infinite.
Right.
And therefore it is senior to structure.
Right.
And that's what I'm trying to tell you today in a lot of different ways. I'm trying to tell you that love is senior to structure. Love is senior to thought. Thought is structural. Thought is finite. But love is infinite. And it's love that commands the universe. And the thinking is the administrator or the organizer of that power. And if you confuse the organizer for the source of the power, you end up worshiping a false idol.
Right. Yeah, I totally understand that.
Right. And so I think my take-home message is today is we have to put first things first. And by putting first things first, then all the techniques, all the thoughts, all the information, all the data, all the scripts, all the techniques, all the rules take their rightful place.
Right. And
then the game has integrity. Then the game has honor, or as Castaneda would say, that Don Juan would say, it's a path with heart. And then when you are tapped into that level of reality, it brings out the best in you. It brings out the best in others. It inspires people to personal greatness. It has people go beyond the confines and structures that have dominated their life up to this point. And since we're all about freedom, then what I'm talking about here is very essential.
It
We
is.
don't want to substitute one structural prison for another.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
So I feel better now about completing this
Okay.
because I think it brought it home a little bit.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be that hard. It is simple. And when I say it's not easy, what I mean is not that it's structurally complex. What I mean is that you're going to come up against your inner demons. But that's another story.
That is.
Yeah.
Fabulous.
Anything you want to say in closing?
No, just thank you for bringing that back from from a heady line of questioning to really realigning us and focusing us in the heart. And, I love that it's coming from the heart. I love being in the space of connecting to people's hearts. And I think that that's the kind of community I want to nurture and be a part of. And I want to attract people that are attracted to that also. Yeah. So I think it was the perfect segue from where I was going, and it's a perfect close.
And one thing that your comments bring up for me is that one of the challenges that many heart-centered people have is they have a tough time with tough love. And sometimes you need tough love. Sometimes you need to set very firm boundaries. Sometimes saying no is the loving thing to do.
It's true.
And so we're not talking about a wishy-washy type of love. And we're talking about a love that is balanced in masculine and feminine energy.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say that people are going to face their barriers and their inner demons, many people have issues around their internal balance of masculine and feminine energies. And you need both. You need both to be a full human being. You need both to be successful in life. And you need both to be at peace. And this is a great training ground for supporting people along their path of self-realization.
Yeah, and also, embracing our own.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. For
Right.
each person, embracing their own, seeing it as a crucible that focuses and amplifies everything about you. It amplifies your strengths and it exposes your weaknesses. And if this can be a safe and focused space for that to happen, then it will have been a path with heart. It will have been, then we will have accomplished something meaningful and eternal, while at the same time improving our physical health and improving our financial wealth.
Mm-hmm.
But we're not going to be able to take our physical health with us, and we're not going to be able to take our financial wealth with us. And so, whenever you're playing a game, there's always two games going on. There's the finite game, and then there's the infinite game. And if we can play the finite game in a way that allows and honors the infinite game to be central, then our games and life is just a game.
Now you're mastering the human experience.
Life is just a game. It's different from living. Living is right now. Living is being aware and present right now. That's not a game.
Mm-hmm.
That's just truth. That's just life. That's just living. But life is a game. Life is made up of a series of games. And we make up the game. And in the game, we say that we're at point A and we want to get to point B. And so in the game, we say that point B is preferable to point A. And life is a bunch of games. But at the end of your life, if you're doing a life review, what matters is not what the score of the game was, but what matters is how you played it.
Exactly.
And why you played it, and who you loved and who loved you, and who you touched and who touched you.
Right.
And so if we can play this game from an enlightened perspective, but not using that as an excuse to not play it 100%, then we discover a very important balance in ourselves, which is really important. And the adaptogens can help people to be more open to that level of balance.
Right. Because of the cellular health, because of the system health.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the financial abundance can give people the psychic and time freedom to go deeper into their own inner life and to explore more fully the spiritual dimensions of life. One of the things that's coming up for me to share again is that one of the big barriers people are going to need to go through is their cynicism, the idea that this sounds too good to be true. And I want to turn that around on them and say, what if it's good enough to be true?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you're selling truth short.
That's right. Well, we've been conditioned, right? So it's breaking through those conditions.
Yeah, maybe we just have never leveraged the combination of geometric progression and time compression and a product that's so universally helpful at a fair price. Maybe we're doing something that has never been done before. Maybe this is a whole new animal and we have nothing, we have no historical referent to compare it to that's valid. Maybe we're laying some new track and we have no historical antecedent that's a valid comparison.
That's certainly a way to put adventure into it.
Right. And it's going to take that kind of pioneer spirit.
Right.
I forwarded you an email I got from the company before we went on the air. And it's basically some of the field leaders are thanking us for our pioneer spirit, because it takes a certain quality to be able to handle what you have to handle as a pioneer. Mm-hmm. And I can't tell you the importance of a group that loves and trusts and cares for each other in the context of an aligned purpose. I can't tell you how important that is in buoying people up when they're having a tough day. Mm-hmm. A lot of times, that's the difference that makes the difference.
Yeah.
Most people quit. And so if you want to reverse engineer it, you have to ask yourself, why do most people quit worthwhile endeavors? And so in my leadership approach and in the systems we create, it's always designed to support people in such a way that, number one, they'll have less of those days, and number two, when they do have those days, instead of quitting, they have a resource, whether it's a human resource or a non-human resource, they have a resource that they can go to. And that there's going to be somebody who's going to be holding a space for them. And that's what we do as leaders. We hold space for people, and we acknowledge them, and we celebrate with them, and we correct them. That's what we do. That's what makes a leader as opposed to just being a manager. And so it'll be easier for people later because we'll have better tools, and we'll have bank accounts. But that's okay. Somebody's got to go first.
There's always somebody that goes first.
And there are rewards, both in both spiritual and physical rewards for the willingness and ability to be pioneering.
Yeah.
But there are many challenges to being pioneering, and there's a big difference between an invention that could help a lot of people and an innovation that's adopted by a community to the point where the community actually is being helped. There are lots of inventions that aren't helping anybody.
Mm-hmm.
because the space hasn't been created for that invention to be adopted as a standard practice by a group of people. And so as pioneers, we have to be able to not only recognize the value of the invention, in this case, adaptogens, in this case, the lifeboat system, but we have to be able to be in such a way and communicate in such a way and have the inner fortitude that it takes to take an invention and turn it into an actual innovation, that where that practice that this invention allows is actually adopted by a community long enough to actually produce the results.
Right.
And so inventors don't make any money unless they can sell their idea to an innovator or unless they can innovate.
Right.
Okay? So in a capitalistic system, the people that make the money directly or indirectly are the people that can innovate.
Right.
Okay? And so we stand on the shoulders of inventions that have already to some extent been innovated. We're standing on the shoulders of network marketing that didn't exist 70 years ago. We're standing on the shoulders of the internet, which didn't exist 20 years ago. Okay, we're standing on the shoulders of a lot of inventions that somebody was able to turn into an innovation that was adopted as a standard practice by a community, and we're standing on those innovations, and now we have an opportunity to innovate.
Right.
And we can get paid a lot of money for innovating, but we can't innovate until we really appreciate the invention.
Right.
That we are innovating and bringing to market. And and shepherding the process that we and other people go through for that innovation to become a standard practice, for that invention to become a standard practice in a community.
Yeah, the time compression model is also an innovation that
Yes.
we have at our fingertips that is
Right.
new.
Right. So if one thing that I accomplished in this hour is to give you a deeper appreciation for the inventions and innovations you have in your hands, if that helps you to appreciate the gift that you have and to offer that gift more thoughtfully and to be able to offer it with more pride and dignity, if you can combine that with the practices that I'm teaching about making sure that your list has at least 60 people, getting all the invitations out the first 3 days, if you can adopt the practices that I'm introducing into this community along with this understanding, then you have a powerful place from which to stand without giving your power away to the structures, to the techniques.
Right.
And you won't be so interested in finding the perfect recipe.
Right.
And you'll be able to relax into yourself a little more deeply.
Right.
And people will see that you're doing that.
Right. Yes,
People
they will.
see that you're being that way. And
Yes.
even if they don't consciously get it, that they're getting it, they're getting it.
Right. Yeah. And people watching this video will, I believe, also benefit from that exact same thing.
Well, you were gracious enough to let me use you as a guinea pig today. and it's really valuable for people to see how a leader can give correction with love, but at the same time, very direct. And it's good for people to see the student be able to take that correction in the spirit it was intended and to be a good steward of that teaching. So there's a lot here. There's an old expression, who we are speaks so loudly, people can't hear what we're saying. It's what we're being that really communicates.
Yeah.
And I think that the caring came through, the love came through, the thoughtfulness came through, the spirit of the team came through. I think an opportunity for people to be inspired to own the New Yugan story at a deeper level came through. So I think this, especially when it's combined with the first one,
yes, very powerful.
is a really valuable, whatever it turned out to be, 2.5 hour package. And, I'll have it available soon for you to use. So it couldn't have happened without you. So I'm glad we did this. And, who knows, maybe something else will come up, or maybe this will be sufficient for your purposes for now.
Right.
But thank you so much. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you too.
Okay, let me stop the recording.
Okay.